All right, welcome everybody to the June 25th, 2024 Planning and Land Use Committee meeting. We'll call it a special meeting because it's on a Tuesday, not a Monday. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Firstly, we acknowledge with respect that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen speaking peoples, and we're honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and Swepsum nations. Approval of the agenda, looking for a mover. Thank you. No seconder, it's committee, right? I always make that mistake. So thank you. Anyone opposed to the agenda? Additions, deletions, nothing noted. Adoption of the minutes, looking for a mover for May 6, 2024 meeting minutes on this side of the table. Thank you, James. Anyone opposed? None noted. Thank you. You get all that, Marcy? Sorry. Public participation, anyone online? Byron, this is your chance. All right, I'll open and close a public participation. New business, Kaitlyn Suzuki. You're up. Press the magic button there and away you go.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jansen, and good evening, everyone. As mentioned, I will be introducing item 5.1, the development variance permit for 2930 Brickshire Drive. So to enable the site works for a car dealership, the applicant is requesting 6 total variances. So these will have the effect of varying the land use bylaw to increase the maximum permitted retaining wall height from 1.2 meters to 4.4 meters, as well as to reduce remove the requirement for a landscape and screening area for a portion of the lot where a car display is located. They're also looking to vary the off-street parking bylaw to reduce the minimum parking stall length from 5.8 meters to 5.5 meters, and the drive aisle width from 7.6 meters to 7 meters, as well as to reduce the accessible parking stall width from 4.1 meters to 4.02 meters, and the access aisle width from 1.5 meters to 1.22 meters. Additionally, they're looking to vary the sign bylaw to increase the maximum permitted height for a freestanding sign from 6 meters to 7.92 meters, and the maximum permitted sign area for a freestanding sign from 15 meters squared to 40.22 meters squared. So for some site context, the site property is located at 2930 Brickshire Drive. This is in the CD 29 zone, which includes automobile sales and repair as a permitted use. In the OCP, this area is designated as a mixed-use employment center. Additionally, as shown in the subject property map, the property is located both in Langford and Colwood. So the gray shaded area is Langford. So only about 26% of the lot is located in Colwood. And the building for the proposed car dealership is fully located in Langford with only site works located in Colwood. So the property is located in the mixed-use employment center, form and character development permit area in the OCP. So this area includes guidelines for things such as retaining walls, signage, and landscaping. So we've listed a few of the relevant guidelines here. So guideline 25.1D supports lock block style retaining walls when they have a texturized natural stone finish, as well as other features to reduce visual impact. Guidelines 25.18C and D respectively support freestanding signs that are low in height, as well as pedestrian scaled signage. Finally, guideline 29.5F supports the use of landscaping to reduce the visual prominence of things such as visible parking and large buildings. Additionally, the property is also located in a riparian environmental development permit area. So as a part of this, the applicant has received an approved riparian assessment from the province. Additionally, an approved development permit, which will review all of the applicable OCP guidelines, is required for this application. So looking at the first variance, the land use bylaw permits retaining walls with a maximum height of 1.2 meters. So the proposed retaining wall is located along the south property line shown. It's shown in orange there, extending from the Langford side of the property over to Colwood. The proposed wall is 4.4 meters tall with, I believe, 0.3 meters buried at the bottom. So about 4.1 meters would be visible. As well, the wall drops in height as it extends towards Veterans Memorial. So the location of the wall also helps reduce the visual impact, so it doesn't front a sidewalk. And additionally, it's located over 10 meters from the front property line, which is shown in highlighted in blue there. As well, there's landscaping both on the property and public right-of-way, which would help provide some screening for the wall. The applicant has also proposed this ready rock ledgestone finish, which matches also what has been improved in Langford for the retaining walls. So staff is supportive of this variance request as the wall uses a natural stone finish as supported by the OCP. And additionally, the location of the wall helps reduce its visual impact. Okay, so next, the CD29 zone of the land use bylaw has a requirement for a 1.5 meter wide and 1.5 meter high landscape and screening area on the edges of the lot that abut a highway. So for the majority of the lot, this requirement is met with the exception of an approximately 11 meter long portion along Brickshire Drive where a car display is located. So on the image there, you can see the display highlighted in yellow. So from VMP, there's expected to be minimal visual impact as the display has, there's approximately 20 meters of landscaping between where the display is located and the roadway, both including landscaping on private property and the public right-of-way. So staff are also supportive of this requested variance as the required screening is provided for the majority of the lot, with the exception of this portion of the car display. As well, due to the substantial landscaping limiting the visual impact from VMP. So the off-street parking bylaw defines requirements for parking design. So currently the required parking space length is 5.8 meters. The applicant has proposed 5.5 meters. So this 5.5 meter length aligns with what is currently required in Langford. And there are parking areas provided both in Langford and on the Colwood portion of the lot. So this would help create uniformity in the parking areas across the property. Additionally, staff have proposed an amendment to the off-street parking bylaw to reduce the parking length requirements to 5.5 meters, which would align with what's been proposed here. And then additionally, previously the parking bylaw also had a requirement for a drive out width of 7.6 meters. However, this was an amendment to reduce this to 7 meters was also recently adopted by council. So now the proposed drive out width matches what's permitted in the bylaw. So staff are supportive of these requested variances as we are already proposing amendments to our off-street parking bylaw, which would align with what's proposed here. Additionally, the majority of the property is located in Langford and the proposed parking aligns with Langford's requirements. So there's also requesting variances related to the accessible parking design. So the accessible parking space currently requires a width of 4.1 meters, which includes a 2.6 meter wide stall and a 1.5 meter wide access aisle. The bylaw also permits 2 accessible parking spaces to share an access aisle, which result in a total space of 6.7 meters for 2 stalls. So you can see this in the top picture there. So the applicant has proposed accessible parking spaces that are 2.8 meters wide, sharing a 1.22 meter wide access aisle. So this results in a total width of 4.02 meters for each space, which is 8 centimeters less than is required. However, the combined total width of the 2 spaces is greater than Colwood's requirements at 6.82 meters. So the proposed accessible parking design also meets the requirements of Langford. So staff is also supportive of these variance requests as they align with Langford's parking requirements, and the total width of the space of 2 stalls exceeds what's required by Colwood. Finally, we're looking at the variances to the sign bylaw. So the subject property is located in Sign District D, which mainly contains commercial and mixed-use employment zones. So Sign District D also permits the largest sign height and area permitted in the sign bylaw. So the maximum permitted sign area is based on the area of the building on the lot. In this case, the proposed dealership is over 1,500 meters squared. So the maximum permitted sign area for a freestanding sign is 15 meters squared. The proposed signage is 7.92 meters tall and a little over 2.5 meters wide. So this results in a sign area over 20 meters squared per side, with a total sign area just over 40 meters squared. So this is over the 15 meters squared permitted in Colwood, as well as the sign area permitted by Langford, as they permit 12 meters squared per side. So in terms of the freestanding sign height, Colwood permits a maximum sign height of 6 meters, with the proposed sign is 7.92 meters tall. This also exceeds Langford's requirements, which permits maximum 7-meter sign height. So staff are not supportive of the 2 requested variances for the sign area and sign height, as Sign District D already permits the greatest freestanding sign area and height. The proposed signage also does not align with Langford's requirements, and it contradicts our OCP guidelines, which support signage that is low in height and pedestrian oriented. So for communication, a development notification sign was posted on the property. Additionally, notification postcards have been sent to neighboring properties within 75 meters to inform them of council's upcoming decision. So there are multiple options for a committee to consider. Committee could choose to recommend to council the staff recommendation, which is to approve the variances to the land use bylaw and the parking bylaw, which would permit the proposed oversized retaining wall and relax the requirements for the landscaping buffer for the portion where the car display is located, permit the proposed reduced parking cell length, and permit the proposed accessible parking design, as well as staff recommend to deny the requested variances to the sign bylaw to increase the permitted freestanding sign height and area. Committee could also recommend that this development variance permit is approved, deferred for further information, denied, or another option for council consideration. So thank you very much for your time. I believe the applicant is also available to present tonight. And I'm also available if you have any questions.
All right, I see Alan there. Are you ready, Mr. Lowe?
Yes, Councilor Gatton.
Over to you.
Thank you, sir. I have Dawood from my office on the line as well. And who is going to do the slideshow? Is that you, Kaitlyn?
I can do it for you. Just 1 second.
So Councilor Jensen and members of the committee, I will be brief tonight. We do have a presentation and I will go over the other variances very quickly because Kaitlyn did an excellent job in discussing the variances. But we will be discussing a little bit in further details the signs, the sign variance that we're asking for. So next slide, please. Okay, this is just an image of looking at the site from Veterans Memorial. Next slide, please. And another view of it going along Veterans Memorial as if you're in a car. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is a little bit further up as you can see it. Next slide. Okay, this is an overview of the site. There's the Harris Chrysler that has been built already, and the empty lot there is where the Hyundai Genesis will be located. As Kaitlyn said, only 26% of the lot is in Colwood and the rest is in Langford. Next slide, please. Okay, as you can see in front there, there's a large riparian area. That riparian area is about 23 meters deep, which is about 77 feet. As we're looking at the sign, even though we're asking for a sign that's 7.92 meters high, your bylaw states that you could have a 6-meter sign, and Langford's bylaw allows for a 7-meter sign. You have to remember that this sign is actually 23.5 meters or 77 feet away from the sidewalk. I could understand if we wanted a sign that's about almost 8 meters high right along the sidewalk, because most properties actually have their property line very close to the sidewalk. In this situation, the sidewalk, the sign is located about over 75 feet away from the sidewalk. And I understand where Kaitlyn's coming from, saying that they want their signs to be lower and pedestrian friendly. Veterans Memorial Parkway, however, is very much a parkway, a highway, and people are driving cars at speeds higher than what they're allowed. And the sign being 23.5 meters away from the sidewalk, a bit further from the road, actually, in perspective, would look a lot smaller than what the sign really is at 7.92 meters. Next slide, please. Okay, and as you can see, the riparian area in the front, which is, like I said, 23.5 meters, we are that far away from the sidewalk. When you look at the sign bylaw, it is a sign bylaw for freestanding signs. And at that time, I would envision that people would think that the sign would be on a post, and then you would have a sign on top of the post. Here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to have a sign monument type of a thing where it is created with aluminum. The sign itself actually is a feature which corresponds to the panels that we have on the building, and it relates to it. When you look at signs and when you look at the copy area, you're saying that we would be allowed something in the neighborhood of 15 square meters. In actual fact, if you really look at the copy area of our sign, the sign that shows Hyundai on it, our copy area on each side is probably less than 2 square meters, which is about 5 times less than what one would be allowed to have if we actually had a sign on a post where we just I guess created a Hyundai sign that meets your bylaws. It would not look very good, and it would not match the building. And we feel that something like this, which we're proposing, is classier and would look much better in this area. Next slide, please. As you can see here, the blue line shows where the Colwood side of the lot is, and the Langford side is where the building is located. The other variances, really, we're trying to be consistent with the Langford bylaw for parking. The area where we're asking for the small area that has no landscaping in front, we already have 23 meters of riparian area with a lot of landscaping there. So the staff were very supportive of that. The only issue that we're having right now is the sign and the size of the sign and whether or not what we're proposing is acceptable. And we would suggest that due to the fact that the sign bylaw and its definitions are, I guess, not updated, we feel that this sign that we're proposing has a copy area less than what a sign on a podium on a post would have. And we believe that the sign that we're proposing is classier and ties in with the building better. I think that's where I'm going to leave it tonight, Councillor Jansen and members of the committee, and we would answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, and I appreciate your explanation, and I can see where you're getting at, that if you were to reduce the size and jam it onto a 6x6 post and mount it there, it would meet the bylaw, but perhaps would not look the same. And I see you have a coworker, and I'm not sure if you have anything to add. Is it Devout? My eyes.
Yes,
Yes, it's Dawood.
thank you. No, Alan covered everything. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will bring it back to committee. Thank you for that, Mr. Lowe. Kathleen.
Mr. Lowe, just a tiny question. You use the word copy. Is that correct? I couldn't,
Yes.
you were saying copy or
Copy area.
Copy.
So you mean the logo? Yeah. Is that what you mean by copy?
Yes, I mean the logo and the printing. So the letters and the logo, that is the copy area.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. James.
I have a couple questions. I wasn't able to ascertain any information about the adjacent dealerships. And I guess if there were to be a variance to be granted for this request, I'm curious how it sort of stacks up against the neighboring dealerships. Do we know any information about the height and square footage area of the dealership that is just north of the property line? I did try to like eyeball it, but I didn't like want to
Yes.
show up with a measuring tape and trying to measure myself.
Yes, we were the architects for the dealership north. Sorry, and the dealership is the Harris Chrysler. There are two pylon signs on that dealership. One pylon sign is in Tallwood, and that's the smaller pylon sign along Brickshire there. And then there is another pylon sign at the corner of Meaford and Veterans Memorial. That is a larger pylon sign with a lot more copy area. We did go to the city of Langford, and we received a variance to allow for that sign.
Anything to add, Kaitlyn? Sorry.
Yes, so for the sign, the freestanding sign that's located in Colwood, they do have an approved sign permit. No variances were required. It's only about, I believe, 3.66 meters tall, and the total sign area is about 14.6 meters squared. So it falls within our bylaw requirements.
And I see, I mean, the only point to add there is that Dodge dealership sign is closer to the highway, and this is going to be, from what I saw, set further back. Is that fair to say?
I'm not sure exactly what the distance.
No, but it looks like that on the photos. Sorry, that's just a.
I think it might be a little bit closer, but I'm not sure about the actual distance.
Yes, it is closer. It's probably, if I just eyeballed it, it's probably an extra 20 feet closer to the highway. But the sign on the corner of Meaford and Veterans Memorial is much closer to the highway and is a little bit higher.
Thank you, Trina.
Could we see the slide? I think it was the third or fourth one in the applicant's presentation that shows the Jeep sign that's on the elevated property to the north, and it shows the pylon sign that's proposed. There we go. So the Jeep sign, are we saying that that's closer to Veterans Memorial?
Kind of looks
I
like that.
I think it's almost, it's a little bit closer. The comment that I would make, and I've driven the Veterans Memorial a few times and looked at, envisioned the proposed sign and saw the Jeep sign. I would certainly be in favor of seeing, the Jeep sign is elevated. But the top, if the Hyundai sign and the Jeep sign were terminated at the same elevation, I'm wondering how tall the Hyundai sign would be at that stage, because it coming down the down Veterans Memorial with both of those signs on the right, if those two signs were actually at the same height, that would be visually quite aesthetic. The additional area of the Hyundai sign, I believe, is aesthetically nicer than having the sign on posts, of course. So the sign wouldn't have to vary in its aesthetic or in its aesthetics at all. But I would be curious to know how high the Hyundai sign is if it were at the same elevation as the top of the Jeep sign. It would be a taller sign because, of course, the elevation of the land that the Jeep sign sits on is higher than the elevation of the Hyundai sign. But but I think it would still aesthetically look quite nice. That would be a comment I would make and something that I would support in seeing.
So hold that thought for a minute and we'll come back to some decisions. Anything else? Sorry, I got two mics on. Were you finished? James?
No, I was just trying to make sure I understood some of the details around that neighboring sign. And that was mostly to emphasize a point very similar surrounding, even if compliance to the Langford requirements for their signage bylaws would be far more amenable, which would be a reduction of roughly a meter. One other point of clarification, just based on the report and some of the details around the signage, I estimate the copy size to be roughly 2 meters in height and width for a total of 4 square meter per side, not the 2 that was previously mentioned. Just a point of reference. Thank you.
I'll defer to your engineering skill sets. Anything else from committee? Just from the chair's position, I think that quite frankly, most of this is certainly acceptable. I don't have any personal issues with it. I can see that there are questions around the sign. Just for ease of getting to a decision, I think can someone do me a favor and make a motion to sever these, and we'll go through it and do it in an orderly fashion. Severing means that we're going to break up the motion rather than this quadruple barreled one.
Are we recommending to separate?
Consider the sign from the other.
Correct. Sorry. Yes. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you so much. No seconder required. Anyone opposed? Nothing seen. So let's deal with the first handful, which is the parking regulations. I'm looking for a motion in that regard, which would be the rock wall, the landscaping screen, the off-street parking bylaw with regard to the size of the stalls, and then the 2 stalls for the, thank you so much. Did you get that, Marcy? Sorry. And so that's the first 4, A through D. And we have a mover, no seconder required. Let's go with all in favor. Thank you. That's unanimous. You get that, Marcy? Thank you. Now let's deal with the sign. Does somebody have a motion for me for discussion? Thank you, Kathleen.
I just want to make my point known. I am opposed to this variance. I agree with the city of Colwood. These are not minor variances. They are very significant. I am concerned about the precedent that we're setting. I'm also concerned about what seems to be this preference on the part of dealers for very large, tall signs, and I'm not really sure why. I'm not necessarily compelled by an argument in terms of what the pedestrians view. I didn't draft the bylaw, but I, assume if you look at the bylaw, we came up with these height requirements for a reason, and they're for industrial commercial districts. So this notion about, well, this is different because there's no pedestrians, I don't agree with that. If someone could tell me what the intent was behind the height restrictions, I might be more convinced. But I believe that they were made in view of the particular zoning area that it was in. So it's commercial mixed use. And the official community plan is really clear that we want low height. And I agree with that from an aesthetic perspective. And I am also not convinced about the argument that, oh, it's only X% copy. I don't think the bylaw is looking at it in terms of what proportion is logo or copy, whether it's a monument or a more traditional style freestanding sign. I think height is height. And from my perspective, I really think that especially the first one with respect to permitted sign area, from 15 meters to 40 is just very major. And I really have to insist that we start paying attention to what the city envisaged. They had a rationale for these height restrictions. My assumption is that they're valid, or otherwise they wouldn't have passed. We knew we were voting for a commercial or a light industrial or a mixed use. So let's stick with what we've decided to do. And again, from my perspective, aesthetically, those signs are just too tall. And it's not like you're not going to be able to see what Hyundai is there. I do like the design, but it certainly can be fit within our requirements. So.
Thank you. Would it be fair to say that you would move the staff recommendation to deny that?
Correct.
You're good with that? Thank you. No seconder required. Discussion. Anybody else? So as you recall, I think we were all here trying to decide on the last dealership sign. So I hear you. And I do know that our sign bylaw is presently on the list for a review and updating. Is it finished now? I can't remember. Ian's not here. Okay. I remember that. Okay. And that came as a result of our previous discussion on this, as I recall. Okay. That was a recommendation from this committee. So I think you're right that it is done. So if there's no further comments, I will pull that back for a decision. The motion on the floor is to support the staff recommendation, which is to deny the variance. Let's go with all those in favor. And that motion passes, and that's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Lowe.
Thank you very much.
And I believe that's it for the agenda. Someone wants to move adjournment unless we all sit here for a while. Thank you, Kathleen. You're the professional mover today. And anyone opposed to adjournment? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll call that adjourned.